Welcome, Director.
Welcome. Welcome.
Senator Cornyn and I were the two authors of the reentry part of the First Step Act, so we obviously have a very keen interest in its implementation and its success. I will relate to you at least my experience, which is that during the battle for that bill, your organization was something less than a champion for our piece of it. But we ended up passing the bill with huge bipartisan majorities. I will tell you that I think the reentry piece was actually an even easier and stronger and more bipartisan piece than the sentencing part. So I think we sent a pretty strong bipartisan signal that we wanted to get this done. There was a meeting afterwards that Senator Cornyn was unable to attend, but was able to send a staff person to with Mr. Kushner, with the DAG, Deputy Attorney General, with senior people at the Bureau of Prisons, with people from the White House who'd been involved in working on this bill, to send a message that we want to see this implemented. So I hope that we were in pretty good shape, and certainly your comments today show, I think, real seriousness about it. But I'm worried that the people within the Bureau who may not have been champions of this bill are still perhaps trying to interfere with the implementation down in the ranks. And the most obvious way is to not ask for additional funding and then blame the lack of additional funding for not going forward. There's a recent survey done of 280,000 of your inmates as part of developing the new assessment tool. And the report was that 49% of them had not completed any programs before they were released. 82% had not participated in technical or vocational courses. And 57% who needed drug treatment had not received it. So there's obviously a huge opportunity here to improve on those numbers. And you have said in your testimony today, the First Step Act provides us with the opportunity to add new programs and enhance and expand existing programs. I'm all for that. But in a staff level briefing, the BOP told us that they currently have no plans to expand their program offerings. So I don't know quite where we are here, but when your testimony says we want to do new programs to implement this new bill that had such bipartisan support, when you see this need in your own survey, and then we hear from your staff that you got no plans to do any new programs, it's a little hard to figure out what's going on here.
Senator, I am completely mystified because I know of no staff in the Bureau of Prisons who are saying we don't want to increase our programs. And so if I can get the names of those people, I'd love to hear about it, because that is not at all where we are in the Bureau of Prisons. I know my staff well enough to know we are not saying those things. We may not be increasing them until we get the funding to do it, but we are absolutely prepared to increase. Now, when those numbers mystify me that Senator Durbin had in terms of the ones who have never been involved in programs. I know we get a lot of lower security inmates that are with us such a short period of time that they don't have time to get involved in programs. We also have a lot of white-collar offenders who come into us very skilled and very successful in their businesses. They just chose to go the illegal route for a while, and they don't really need the programs. And there are inmates that are doing life sentences that simply choose not, because they're not going to need a good job on the outside, so they don't get involved in vocational training. But for the vast majority of our inmates, we have lots of programs out there, education, vocational training, therapeutic programs for inmates to get involved in. We don't have enough. No question about it. We don't have enough. And as I said earlier, the only thing that's going to impede us is the resources to offer enough programs so that all inmates can be involved.
We need to make sure that the budget that you're requesting aligns with those priorities, because it doesn't help us when the administration comes in with a budget that does not support the additional resources that we need.
Right.
It is a setback. We do have appropriators who will pay no attention to particularly bad recommendations in administration budgets on both sides of the aisle. This is a bipartisan phenomenon, but it really, I think, is important. And with respect to one particular piece of this, the medication-assisted treatment,
right.
Rhode Island is probably the national leader right now in getting medication-assisted treatment to prisoners before release. We've dramatically reduced death by overdose within that population. But we use the whole array of approved medical interventions. Mm-hmm. BOP, we understand, offers primarily only one drug, which is called Vivitrol. You're trying to expand the medication-assisted treatment program,
Yes,
you
Senator.
say, but you only requested an additional $1 million and no additional staff to expand the availability of medication-assisted treatment in the FY 2020 budget. So this is the kind of example where it's frustrating for us to have you say, we really want to do this, it makes sense, we know it works, we've seen the cases out there where it saves lives and improves people's recidivism when they're out, and then when the rubber really hits the road in the budget you request, you undercut yourself with a budget request that doesn't accomplish the goals you state you wish to achieve.
Senator, part of the limitations on us in terms of the other drugs right now that you would provide to inmates coming into the institution, we don't have the authorities to provide those. HHS and DEA have very strict restrictions, and I'm sure your state has already managed to get those authorities. We are working diligently with HHS and DEA because a lot of times for us, it's a matter of moving these drugs across state lines because our institutions are everywhere and our inmates release everywhere and they come from everywhere. And so we're working very diligently to get the proper licensure and procedures to do it on the front end. Right now, we are still ensuring the inmates get the medicine, but if they come in and we review their case with their outside doctors and our doctors, we take them downtown where there is a prescriber who can prescribe that medication for us. So part of what we need to move forward on this is simply the licensure agreement for our own staff. The inmates are still getting the drugs. We're simply having to take the inmate out into town to get it prescribed for them.
Can Congress help you here?
Pardon me?
Can Congress help you in this regard?
Right now, I think we can get it. We thought we were going to have to come up for a modification of the law, but I think we're very close to getting the final approval from HHS and DEA on both the buprenorphine and the methadone. If that doesn't work, I'll come and talk with you.
Well, let's just make sure that there's no little counterinsurgency going on against this in your administration.
I swear, Senator, there is not, and if there is and I find it, they'll be working somewhere else.
Okay, thanks.
Senator Blackburn.